The Korean People's Army is expanding its capabilities. New warships, new equipment, and increasingly complex training exercises are all part of building what it calls a high-tech fighting force. But what actually is the Korean People's Army? And perhaps more importantly, what is it becoming? In many ways, the Korean People's Army operates just like any other military. It coordinates its operations through three recognisable branches: the ground forces, the navy, and the air force. All of which are tasked with both national defence and symbolising state power. But that's only part of the picture. In reality, those three branches are actually six. The Korean People's Army is responsible for a lot of the DPRK's newest construction projects, and recent improvements in technology could be signalling a further expansion of their role beyond simple deterrence. To understand the Korean People's Army, we have to look at all of these roles together. From the newest construction regiments underpinning the nationwide rural revolution, through the recent focus on expanding the capabilities of the Navy, to the strategic force and its role in projecting power abroad. More than just a military, the Korean People's Army operates as a broad functionary of the party and of the state, which is, in a sense, peculiar, since it actually predates both of them. The armed forces of the DPRK formally derive from a much older group, known as the Choson Inmin Hyokmyeongun, the Korean People's Revolutionary Army, which Korean sources point to being formed on the 25th of April 1932. Not a formal military as such, but instead a connected web of guerrilla forces launching irregular, asymmetric attacks against the Japanese forces in the occupied Far East. It wasn't designed or calibrated to defend a state, because there was no state. The Korean People's Revolutionary Army was a constituent part of a larger push against Japanese expansion across Korea and northern China, and to defend against any incursion across the Soviet Union's eastern flank. The Northeast Anti-Japanese United Army was the main Chinese force, affiliated with the Communist Party of China, in combating Japanese occupation in the northeast, whilst the Communist Party proper operated in the rest of occupied China against Tokyo. The Soviet Union's Far Eastern Military District oversaw the defence of the regions around Khabarovsk and Vladivostok, and provided support to Koreans and Chinese fighting in Manchuria. But while each unit had its distinct affiliations and membership, in reality, the region was a melting pot of Chinese fighters and Korean dissidents who left the peninsula, where Japanese grip was strongest, to fight against the occupation in the mountains of northern Korea and in the Chinese Far East. Official DPRK sources place the Korean People's Revolutionary Army amidst this network of guerrilla groups, with leading figures from one army often holding rank and position in another. This all changed in 1948, about 2.5 years after Korea had been liberated, and a new state structure was being established. The modern Korean People's Army, or Chosoninmingun, was organised on the 8th of February 1948. This is why today, the military traces its origins back to two different founding dates. And as this new military began to expand, it incorporated new branches. The core fighting units became the ground forces. The Korean Aviation Society was reorganised into the Air Force, and the Korean Maritime Security Forces became the modern Navy. Since then, throughout the Cold War, the structure and organisation of the Korean People's Army has continued to expand and evolve, shaping how the modern armed forces of the DPRK are organised today. At the core of understanding the Korean People's Army is understanding where it sits within society. Like lots of other socialist and communist countries, the military is a wing of the party, not of the state, sitting within the broader political structures of the Workers' Party of Korea. At the top is the Central Committee, which, in turn, appoints a body called the Central Military Commission, overseeing all the nation's armed forces. Beneath this commission are two groups: the Korean People's Army, the formal military, and the Worker Peasant Red Guards, a nationwide paramilitary force organised at a local level. Within the Korean People's Army, the structure becomes more complex, with its three familiar branches and the additional forces that extend its role. At its core is the ground force, the primary branch, responsible for land-based operations. Supporting them is the second largest branch in the Korean People's Army, the Air Force, tasked with defending national airspace. While the Navy is responsible for all seaborne operations, such as the defence of coastal areas around the country. Separate from the Core 3 is the Special Operations Force, responsible for conducting asymmetric warfare and commando operations. The Strategic Force is dedicated to the operation of surface-to-surface missiles, and the Missile Administration manages the development of these new missile systems. The Ground Force sits at the heart of the Korean People's Army, spread across the entire country, coordinated through the Ministry of National Defense in Pyongyang. With close to 1 million active duty personnel and a large inventory of artillery and armoured vehicles, they form the backbone of the Korean People's Army. But these units aren't only used for combat. Across the country, things are developing rapidly, with new skyscrapers in the capital, new farming villages in the provinces, and a broad sweep of new factory projects under their 20x10 scheme. A lot of this construction is undertaken by the People's Army itself, with specific units dedicated to domestic construction and infrastructure projects. For example, The 124th Regiment was recently created specifically for building new regional industry factories across the country. Alongside these regiments are so-called shock brigades. These are mobilised labour units drawn from local worker and youth organisations, assembled to complete specific campaigns rapidly. This use of the national military instantly makes them more than just an army force. It's also a key coordinating body for these recent big economic pushes we've seen nationwide. Organised by the Workers' Party, but implemented by the military in coordination with the state. But the army's military function isn't being diminished by this role. In fact, if anything, it's actually expanding its military presence at a rate we've not seen for decades. In 2020, the Korean People's Army unveiled a new main battle tank, the Chonma-2. In 2022, they revealed the Saebyul-9, a multi-purpose attack drone. The next year, they deployed their first military surveillance satellite, tactical nuclear attack submarine, and a new attack drone. And in 2025, 2 brand new destroyers were launched for the Navy. Right now, we're seeing a significant push within the Korean People's Army to fulfill the goals laid out by the party to transform the military into a high-tech fighting force better suited to 21st century warfare. The rapid expansion of the Navy with these 2 new warships, and another 2 under construction at time of writing, signals the development of a so-called blue water navy, with ships capable of operating in open ocean, far from coastal waters. From what we understand so far, these new destroyers will join the DPRK's East Sea Fleet, operating in the waters between Korea and Japan, to counter threats from the Republic of Korea, Japan, or the United States operating from either region. Meanwhile, on land, the ongoing improvement program around the new main battle tank variants has seen recent combined drills held between infantry groups, armoured attack vehicles, main battle tanks, and UAVs, which suggests these new technologies are being integrated into a new strategic framework for the military. Taken together, these developments point to a much broader shift. The Korean People's Army has moved from a force focused primarily on defence to one with an aspiration and growing ability to project power. For decades, the grand military parades on Kim Il-sung Square have been representative of raw military power. But today, that same power is projected differently. The Missile Administration's intercontinental ballistic missile arsenal, deployed with the strategic forces, is able to act as an effective nuclear deterrent, twinned with the deployment of nuclear-capable submarines into the East Sea. A future expanded navy with deep water capabilities would be able to project power alongside regional allies, Russia and China, in the seas surrounding Korea, and potentially further out into the Pacific. All this while the Air Force continues to develop new unmanned aerial vehicles to support potential asymmetric warfare on the ground, as well as recently retrofitting an Ilyushin IL-76 into a new airborne early warning system aircraft, providing a clearer picture for command and control during any potential military operation. And as things stand now, these development programs don't show any sign of slowing down. So, what can we take from all of this? What is the Korean People's Army becoming? What we can say is that it's expanding in two directions at once. On the one hand, it's no doubt seeing a lot of development on the conventional front. National defence has long been at the centre of the political conversation in Korea, and the last half-decade has seen that even more so, with little sign of changing course. But simultaneously, it's not doing away with its domestic role as a coordinating force for economic projects, construction, and mass movements. This heralds back all the way to the Korean War, when the young Korean People's Army was at the forefront of the military campaign, only to then quickly shift into a new role in rebuilding the country after the armistice. And this is a role that's carried on across decades until today. Except today, the military is at the heart of the two biggest political projects in the DPRK. The Rural Revolution Programme and combined 20x10 policy is seeing construction on a scale not seen since the 1950s, spearheaded by this new 124th Regiment. Meanwhile, the modernisation of the armed forces, in a military sense, is pushing ahead amidst an ever more uncertain international situation. And as long as that global instability continues, the Korean People's Army will see its role and position on the international stage strengthening. If you want to support DPRK Explained and the videos we're making here, then there's three things you can do. You can like and subscribe here on YouTube to help the channel continue to grow. You can check out the Patreon, linked in the description, to give your support to the channel in a more material way, and get some extra behind the scenes updates on upcoming projects. Or you can head on over and check out the channel merchandise that's available in the description. Any and all support is greatly appreciated, and of course, you could always do all three. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.